Hello, everyone. Welcome. We'll start right at 6. Oh. Yes, that's fine. You don't have to have your video on if you don't want. That's up to you. I mean, I'll go over this today. That's up to you, whatever you're comfortable with. And you can respond in the chat, or you can respond verbally if you'd like. That's also fine.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
You do not have to have your video on if you do not want to. And you can respond, talk to me or talk to everyone either in the chat or by talking like you just did, Keaton. Either way is fine, whatever you would prefer.
Okay. Thank you.
Quite a few people still missing. Let me check my email really quick. Let me start this. All right, well, let's just get started anyway. So hi, everyone, welcome. If you're in this room right now, this virtual room, you should be enrolled in Modern Korean Art and Culture, either History of Art 363 or East Asian Languages and Cultures 373. And this is the session 2 of the spring 2023 semester. So I don't really know how you would be in here if you were not enrolled in either of those 2 courses, but hey, you never know. So my name is Logan Ward, and you can refer to me as either he or they in the third person. I am not a professor, so that's the first thing I always want students to understand. I'm not a professor, so please do not call me professor. I do not have a doctoral degree, so please do not call me doctor. I am a graduate student in East Asian art history. I'm just now a PhD student, actually. But I do have an MA in East Asian studies from a different university. So in this course, whenever you're talking to me, you can refer to me as Logan. If you're someone who studies East Asian languages, you can call me Lao Shi, Sensei, or Sungsing-nim, whatever you would prefer. In English, you can call me teacher as well. I'm comfortable with that. So today, we're going to go over the class structure first, and then we're going to do a brief introduction to Korea and Korean history. And then at the end, I will go over the after-class assignments that you have. So there are essentially 4 most important documents for the course, but the only one that I really think you need to look at is this first one, the syllabus. So I'm going to switch over to Canvas here. Is everyone seeing Canvas?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. And yes, I will ask a lot of questions throughout our time together. This is more of like discussion. So even if the answer is no, I would appreciate a response. So this is what Canvas looks like. I think almost everyone has logged on. Thumbs up are good too. Thank you, Cody. This is what Canvas looks like. It should just make sure you're on the one that says second mini-mester. I don't think anyone should have the first mini-mester one, but they are different courses. So every week, your links to get onto the Zoom and into the modules, the syllabus, everything is on this front page here. But generally, the most important thing is this modules button over here. You're going to go to modules, and you'll see everything is laid out in a separate module. Every week has its own module with everything you need to do in order of what that you should do that in. So there's a course information module, which is at the top, and this has all the important documents that I was just talking about, including the syllabus, which I'll show you in a moment. There's a rubrics module, which has the rubrics for every single assignment that we have. And then we have the weekly modules. So we're in week 1, introduction to the course. So you notice there's what you need to do before class, which is really just look at these things this week, and then what you need to do after class. So this week, there's a lot of stuff that you need to do after class, but going forward, there will only be like one after class assignment, 1 or 2 after class assignments. Okay, so the syllabus looks like, let me exit out of this. what is that? Yeah, save it. Okay, so the syllabus, here we go, PDF. So the syllabus looks like this. It is very long. However, I'm not gonna read this word for word for you. I don't necessarily think you need to, but you should look over it and notice the most important parts. Everything that I go over today in class is in the syllabus. So I think the most important thing for you is the description of the assignments, which is located on pages 4 and 5 here. And I'll talk a little bit more about those later, but as we're going through the course, whenever you're confused about what you're supposed to do, you should really look back at the syllabus for that explanation. Okay, so yes, and then also I will say there are some resources for you as well for your success that you may not know exist, and I encourage you to look at these on pages 9 and 10, which are at the end. So what I do think is really important, although not everyone really likes to use it, is the weekly schedule and tasks. So you can just follow along with what you need to do for the course in Canvas by following the modules. But if you're like a text person and you want to see the schedule like written out, this is really the document that's for you. That's how I personally function. That's what I like to do. And it's essentially everything you need to do in order that I suggest you do it for the entire semester. So you can make sure that you have the one that says session 2 on it as well. I deleted the session 1 one, but I don't know if it's still lingering anywhere. So there's this version, and then there's also, if you're someone who likes to see a calendar, like a visual representation, this doesn't have like what the readings and videos are that you need to watch before class, but it does have week by week the assignment that is due and when it is due. So if you're someone who likes to look at it this way, this is for you as well. So I'm not going to go over each and all the rubrics right now, but when we get into the assignments, and I will always go over the rubric with you before you're supposed to complete that assignment. But these are there for you, and I suggest you do familiarize yourself with them. Okay, the last thing is, for Canvas at least, because we are what's called a short course, we have different dates for adding and dropping than other courses. So you can use this link here, registrar schedule for short courses, and then you need to search just 57231. And this will give you the dates that you need to know if you're someone who's not really sure if you're wanting to take the course or not. And so the last day that this course can be added with approval is April 2nd. The last day for you to switch to no credit for the course is April 10th. And then the last day for you to drop without any penalty is March 30th. So that's coming up here really soon. That's within 1 week. So you do need to realize that. And then today, I guess, is the last date for you to drop with 100% refund, right? So you do need to know, if you're not really sure about it, you do need to know these days. All right. So are there any questions about any of that?
No.
No. Thank you. Okay. So my office hours, I hold them on Mondays and Fridays in the evening, 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. The reason is because I figure if you're enrolled in this course, you probably might have more time in the evening than normal. So that's why I do my office hours in the evening. You can sign up to meet with me during this time using the sign up genius here. You're not required to. I have to be logged on no matter what. So if you want to come to my office hours, you can ask me you can really, it's just your time to talk to me about anything pertaining to class, school. If you just want to talk about Korea, or you're curious about Korea or art history or East Asia in general, you're welcome to come and talk to me about that. I was an undergrad pretty recently, and so I probably know a little bit more about what you're going through or what kind of career interests your career questions and school questions you have, a little bit more than someone who is an actual professor and is much more further in their academic career than you usually interact with. The other thing is that if you need help with extra assignments, you can meet with me during this time. Sometimes I will ask you to meet with me if I feel like you're having trouble and you're not responding to me properly. So keep that in mind as well. So emailing is very important because I get a lot of emails, and I do expect you to use a particular kind of topic, especially, and use a certain kind of language when you email me. So the topic needs to include the course number, so either HA363 or EALC373, your full name, the date that you're sending it to me. I know that it already has a date on it, but I would like to see it in the topic as well, because that's what I read more obviously. And then a word or phrase describing what you're sending me the email about. So an example is HA363, Logan Ward, October 26, plenary response question. And then make sure to be formal in your emails to me. So no matter what kind of workplace you're in or what kind of atmosphere you're in, you're probably going to be sending emails to people. Or even if you're not, it's just a good practice to make sure you're being a little bit more formal and respectful in an email to someone than you might normally be. I am your instructor, so you do need to I want to know that you've taken the time to think about what you're sending me. So it should start with something like, "Dear Logan," or "Hi Logan," "Hello Logan," and it should end with a signature or like a dash, your name, sincerely your name, something like that. So just please keep that in mind. I will email you back and say, "Hey, just so you know, like this comes off as a little bit informal," or which kind of makes it read as disrespectful. I know you're probably like, that's kind of stupid, but it is something that you should practice. Okay, so if you're a student who requires accommodations, make sure that you sign up with student services. Every time I get the email from student services about your accommodation request, I email you directly and ask you about if you want to meet with me to discuss it. So if you have not gotten that email from me already, I have not gotten an email from student services, and I have had them in the past send, especially for the second session course, because it starts in the middle. I have had them forget to send me the link, the email about your accommodations, because they send them to the courses that begin at the beginning of the semester, but not the ones in the middle. So make sure you check with that. Okay, so the purpose of this course. So foremost, it's pretty much that you're going to be learning about this place called Korea, and you're going to be learning about the art or visual culture, which are both terms that we'll start familiarizing ourselves with what those mean as the course goes along. But the art and visual culture that is from Korea or happening in Korea or has happened in Korea. So in doing that, did someone have a question? Make sure your mics are off if you're not talking. So in doing so, we're going to be practicing connecting different contexts. So historical contexts, political contexts, different, just generally speaking, social contexts, to the meanings of the art or visual culture that we're looking at. And we're going to also be practicing a lot putting into words what we see. So this is just describing something. And you might think that to describe something seems like a very elementary skill, but in art history and in like visual culture, visual studies, describing something is a little bit different than just kind of colloquially describing something. And so it's a lot harder than you think, actually. And so we're going to be really practicing doing that. It's much more difficult to do it at the level we want to. And we're also going to be practicing reading and criticizing scholarly literature. So we're going to be reading not just kind of like textbook kind of chapters, but a couple of scholarly articles as well. And one of our focuses is going to be trying to determine what is the argument, what's the evidence that they use to support that argument, and do we agree based on what they have put forth. So that's something you probably do in all your courses, or you should be doing at least. And then we're going to be practicing writing a lot. All the assignments in this course, except for the quizzes that are due at the end of this week, everything is writing. So if you're someone who has a hard time writing, I do think that this course is going to be a challenge for you, but I'm going to be helping you every step of the way. And your grade is not, you're going to have to be doing the writing, but as you'll see with the rubrics and everything, your exact writing style or the way you write is not going to be, it's not going to be detrimental to you if it's something you feel like is not your strong suit. But nonetheless, we're going to be learning a particular way of writing, which is called visual analysis. And you don't need to know what that means because you're going to learn after class, actually. And then we're basically going to be taking all of this stuff and we're going to be putting it together, and we want to apply it to help us understand and discuss both ourselves and our own culture, where we come from, our own identities, and in relation to also Korean identity, Korean culture, and history, and all of these different culture and identities together. So everything we do in the course is geared towards these goals, basically. Okay, so assignments and points. So I'm not going to go over all of this, but what I do want you to notice is that attendance and participation are a third of your grade. So showing up and participating, which I'll go over what that means in a little bit, is if you can do that, I think you're going to be okay in the course overall. That's the biggest thing. Everything else is worth about the same amount of same fraction of the total grade. Notice that the midterm and final are like together about a third of the grade as well. And then everything else together is about a third of the grade. So, give or take, the kind of everything split in these three different ways. So your weekly schedule, every week is set up the same way. What you have to do is different every week, but it's essentially set up between Monday and Tuesday, which are before class. And so you're going to read and watch the assigned materials that are all on Canvas. And again, I suggest you read and watch them in the order that I have put them, because it'll make more sense that way. And then on Tuesday, you're going to have your original blog post. So this is like your before class assignment. This is one part of it. And that's going to be due on Tuesday at 11:59 p.m. I'm going to go over how to do this in the last 15 minutes of class. So you're gonna know what to do. And then Wednesday is when you have to, by 5 p.m., you need to go back to that discussion board with the blog post. You're going to submit 2 comments onto 2 different people's original posts. And I'll go over how to do that as well, because just commenting something like, I agree with you, or I like what you said, or that's interesting, that's not the comment. We're trying to build a conversation going on within the discussion board. So there's a particular criteria you have to meet with your comments. And then you're going to attend the live session at 6 p.m. on Wednesday, like you are right now. So the blog posts is actually different this week because you don't know how to do it yet, so I can't really assign it before class. So this week it's actually due tomorrow night, Thursday, by 11:59 p.m. And then the comments are due by Friday at 11:59 p.m. But this is the only week that's like this. It's just a weird week. And the blog post is more a response to what we'll talk about today in class. And then Thursday through Sunday. So every week you'll have at least the one after class assignment. Usually it's due on Fridays at 11:59 p.m. I think the only ones that are due on Sunday are the quizzes after this class. And then the midterm and final are all due on Sunday at 11:59 p.m. So you have all this time to do the after class assignment. So you really it should be plenty. Okay, so late assignments and absence policy. So this is very important. There's a very specific policy that's in place, and if you deviate from it or don't follow through with it in the correct order, I cannot give you a grade for late assignments or for an absence. So number one, the big thing is that I cannot accept anything unless you have emailed me or talked to me about it. You cannot just submit something late and then expect me to grade it. I will not grade it unless you've sent me an email or have told me I submitted this late. So that's the number one thing. You cannot you will, I mean, for the absences, you will have to email me anyways, because it's a separate assignment that you have to do. So for assignments, after you have communicated with me that you're going to submit or that you have submitted a late assignment, you have up to 1 week of the original deadline to submit it as late. So I will not accept it after 1 week, which is plenty of time for you to do an assignment that was actually due a week beforehand. So every assignment that is late, except for the midterm and final, will receive first a deduction of 1/5 of the total points. So if it's like a blog post assignment, the maximum you can get is 10 points. So that if you turn it in on time. So that means if you turn it in late, the maximum you can get is 8 points, right? So -2. The midterm and final are actually an automatic deduction of 1/4, which is 15 points. So the maximum you can get on the midterm or final is 60. So if you turn it in late, the maximum you can get is 45. That's a B minus. Yeah, that's a B minus, right? So, or well, the midterm and final is actually a C, but the B minus is for the regular assignments. Typically, they're 10 points. And that's not including me just grading it like normal. So if I grade it and you did it perfectly, but you just turn it in late, you get an 8 out of 10. If I grade it and you're missing some things, then I deduct points for all those things that you're missing anyways. So something to keep in mind. So absences. So if you know you're going to be absent, you really should just email me and tell me anyways, so that we can plan ahead. If you are absent and it's unforeseeable, you really have about 20, you really should be telling me within a day, within 24 hours that you were absent. I will never ask you why you're absent. I will never ask you that. I don't need to know why. It's none of my business. So all you need to tell me is that you're absent. You were absent. You just need to acknowledge that. And then you have to do a separate visual analysis assignment, which you don't know how to do that, but starting next week, you will know how to do that. And that visual analysis assignment will allow you to earn back your points. And you can do this up to 2 times, unless there's some kind of extenuating or just some kind of extreme circumstances, in which I assume you'll be communicating with me about that anyways. So keep this in mind. Okay, what are we doing? Yes. All right. So are there any questions about anything that I've addressed so far? Yes or no?
Yeah, I have a quick question.
Yes.
So for the late assignments, so
Mhm.
even if we communicate with you, automatically if they're late, a 5th or a 4th of the points will be taken off? Or is that so that's even if we communicate you, any late assignment will have automatically some amount of deduction?
Yes, all late assignments will. The reason is because I have to maintain some kind of fairness for students who submitted it on time versus students who haven't submitted it on time. If, just talk to me if there's some kind of extreme circumstance and we can work something out about that. But just keep this, the most important thing is that you communicate with me. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Was there another question? Or was that a no?
All good, thank you.
Okay, great. All right, so attendance and participation. So there's a very specific way that you get your attendance and participation grade. So a full 20 points for the attendance and participation grade is you're going to, number 1, log on to the Zoom, right? Number 2, every week I'll have something that's an attendance question. It's very obvious. It'll say attendance question, and I will say this is the attendance question. It'll usually be like our discussion starter. And you need to answer that question. So that's 5 points. So these 2 things together each of them are 5. So logging on is 5, answering the attendance question is 5. Now, the next thing though, is that you need to contribute multiple times to the discussion. I ask questions consistently through our meetings, and that's your chance to either in the chat, you can talk if you want to, You just have to be showing me that you are following along and willing to participate and think about what we're going over in the live session. So multiple times means, I think, at least 3 times. That's kind of like 5 points per response. But when I go back and look, and I look in the chat to make sure I've tracked it, that might sound crazy, but I have to make sure the grades are fair. If you just say like yes or no, like you answer those kind of questions, it gets a little bit iffy there. I kind of base it on content as well. So then going down the line, 15 points is you've done some of these things, 10 points if you've done like half of these things, and 5 points is you just logged on, but you didn't actually contribute anything. Okay, so does that make sense? That's how you get attendance and participation. I don't think it's that complicated. All right, so this is our attendance question for today. So this is boring, but this is what it is. I know some of this stuff about you, but we don't know it about each other. And there are some of the stuff that I don't know either, but it's good for me to know. So type in the chat. We'll just do the chat. Your major, your minor, if you want, or your department, whatever you want to share. Your rank/year, you know, if its rank is a little bit different for you. And then if you're taking or have taken an East Asian language course, which one? If you've ever traveled to East Asia and where, and if you've ever taken an art history course, you don't have to tell me which one, but just how many, if you've taken 1 or 2. I would really appreciate that. And this way we can also see that this class is actually quite discipline-wise. The vast majority of us are not in art or in East Asian culture. Most of us are in the sciences or business combined together, so which is actually quite different for this course. All right. Okay, I'm going to go down through and say everyone's name as well, and just so that I know and have met you. Okay, Greta, nice to meet you. You are psychology, and then I think you added something, right? Sophomore, and then no. Great. Jenna, biology, art history minor. Oh, interesting combination there. Nice to meet you. Grace, nice to meet you. Yes, business analytics. Cody, there's 2 Codys in here, I think, or at least there are on the roster. Okay, visual art and art history minor. Good. I think art history and visual art, they talk to each other a lot. Okay, at least I don't know if you don't care if I read yours out loud. Some of you direct messaged me, which is fine. So I won't read yours out loud just in case you just didn't want others to know. Okay, so Riddy. I'm assuming your name is pronounced Riddy. If it is not, please let me know. Is that how you say your name? You can either just say yes in the thing.
Yeah, that's how you pronounce it.
Okay, great. Where did I go? Nice to meet you. And sorry, here it is. Okay, good. Yeah, quite a few visual art and art history minors. Madison, nice to meet you. Sarah, biology, nice to meet you. And I'm assuming Brannon is how you spell your name, is how you say your name. Is it Brannon or Brennan? I know I met you via email a while ago.
Yeah, it's just Brannon.
Brannon. Okay, great. Thank you. Good. Jay. All right. Biology freshman. Oh, Japan and Korea. Me too. I have been to Japan and Korea. I've been quite a few places in both, actually. Good. Nice to meet you. Keaton. Yes, Keaton is gonna graduate this semester, actually. Nice to meet you. Grace, Cody. Okay. Ben, right, is your name? Okay. Visual Art BFA Junior. Nice to meet you. Jared, nice to meet you. Let's see. Oh, you've taken Visual Arts of East Asia. Did you take that with me, or did you take that with someone else? Because I thought your name looked familiar. Did you take it with Morgan?
No, I took it with somebody else. It was
Oh,
no, and I'm blanking on her name, and I probably mispronounced.
It was probably Ing then. Ing is my friend. Good. Yes, I think that these 2 courses, that course is actually quite different from this one. Okay, and Retham, I remember you from the beginning of the course. So good to see you're back.
Yes.
And Viola.
I
Oh, yeah.
had to probe that because I took another art history course.
Mm-hmm.
So I took it for this half.
I think that's a good idea. Just to spread it out. Yes, and Viola. Oh, Vila. Okay. Vila.
Vila.
Vila. Okay, Vila.
Yes.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Yes. And you have been to China. You've taken, oh, 5. Are you studying Korean, Vila?
I'm
Or
not. I am a Chinese emphasis major.
Okay, great. All right. Wonderful to meet all of you. And I will keep all of this info. So if I ever mispronounce your name when I'm saying it, please correct me either in the chat or verbally. You deserve to have your name pronounced correctly because it is your name. So I will try my best. I'm pretty good about it. So about me, I actually I minored in Korean at Ohio State University. And I majored in something called arts management, which was kind of like nonprofit management, but for the arts. And then I actually got a master's in East Asian studies where I focused on Korean and Korea. And now I'm doing Korean art history. For a non-native speaker, I'm very fluent, pretty fluent in Korean, definitely advanced. I've studied Korean for 9 years now. So, and I've been to Korea once for a language program, but I've been to Korea a total of twice. Unfortunately, COVID really killed my my Korea plans. And I've been to Japan, but I've taken 1 year of Japanese, but I'm not good at it. I can read it basically. So, my background is not in art history either. And I think in this course, what we do is definitely art history, but it's a lot more what I would call visual culture and focus a lot more on analyzing what we see and talking about what we see and how it connects to things, which is related to art history, but I think it's different from some of the other courses you may have taken. All right. Let me grab this. So let's learn a little bit about Korea. So this is what Korea looks like. When you zoom in a little bit, you'll see this map during your quizzes, the quiz modules. So when I say the word Korea or Korean or I don't know, K something, what are some things that come to mind? It could be anything. It could be stereotypical. It could be personal. It could be very political. It could be anything, just some things you think of. It could be nothing. Maybe you know nothing about Korea. You've never even heard of it before, and you just randomly signed up for this course. Ramen. So we say it the Japanese way in English. So ramen is actually just noodles, but in Korean it's pronounced ramyeon, and they have lots of really great ramen from Korea. Has anyone ever had burdak, bogumyeon, which is the spicy chicken? They say it's like the hottest ramen. I love it. Parasite, yes. And Squid Game, yes. Unfortunately, and I might be adding this to this course or doing something, we do not have a film or TV section in this course. We only have a K-pop section, which talks about it a little bit. But film and television, huge. Good, yes. The division and war of North and South. We are going to learn about that today. We are going to learn about it. Soccer, yes, I think this Korean soccer team is really good, right? Or something. I don't know much about sports at all, but I would love to know. Yes, Korean War, K-pop, absolutely K-pop. We will have a whole section on K-pop. Korean, so K-pop, if you ever see something, for those who don't know, that's K something, it means Korean something. And that's a 21st century kind of phenomenon. And they put it, the Korean government particularly, they put it in front of everything. We have K-pop, K-drama, K-food, K-tourism. It's K-fashion. We have all this sorts of K stuff, right? Good. Celadon, yes. Jared, you definitely took visual arts of East Asia. Celadon, yes. Korea Celadon. We will learn about that later later, but we're not, it's going to be different. We're going to have a different perspective on the issue of Celadon. So Celadon, if you don't know, is blue-green glazed ceramics from the Goryeo period, which is basically 1000 to 1400. So it's very old. It's old stuff. Korean dramas, yes. Korean dramas, ramen. A lot of people said ramen, maybe. I don't know where everyone's getting ramen from. Good. Yes. K-pop, K-dramas, culture. So what about culture though? What about Korean culture? What are some things? What we're kind of talking about here is stuff that we think of when we think of Korean culture, right? Yeah, so we have these three pictures here. We have the television, which is Squid Games, right? This is Korean. This is called Ugak, which is, it means country's music or nation's music. But that's the South Korean term. I don't know if they use that in North Korea for Korean, quote unquote, traditional music. We're going to talk about that word traditional and what that means and where it comes from throughout this course. And then this, I believe, is Myeongdong, which is a huge shopping district. And it actually has Japanese and Korean all over, which is pretty, you see Japanese, Korean, and Chinese scripts all over the place in Korea. And English, and like not English, but European, like the Latin alphabet as well. Good. So we are over here, and forgive me, I think this is a little bit probably off kilter, but we are over here, and Korea is all the way over here. So Korea is a smaller part of a couple of larger regions. And one of those regions is this one that I have circled. Does anyone know what we would call this region that I have circled here? It has more or less 3 countries or 3 cultures, national cultures that are represented. Yes, this is East Asia. So this is East Asia, and we will talk about what East Asia means in just a moment. And then East Asia is actually a sub-region of an even larger region, which is this one. And what is this? What is this area? And this is Asia. Yes, this is the continent, Asia, or I guess I call it Eurasia too, is Europe and Asia together, right? And so when we think about Korea, I'll say that thinking about Korea in Asia is not as helpful as it is thinking about Korea in East Asia and then the other region that we're about to talk about. Because if you think about Asia, it's very vast, right? And yes, over historically speaking, everyone has been exchanging stuff and been in connection, at least indirectly. But for example, if we think about somewhere like Korea, and then we think about somewhere like over here in the Middle East, right? Is there really much similarity or a huge connection between Korea and somewhere like Iran or Saudi Arabia, Iraq, right? On the surface, no. On the surface, no. Historically, there's definitely a connection, like indirectly, but not really, right? We could probably, just based on stereotypes alone, think of some very huge differences between the two, right? But East Asia is a little bit different. East Asia, between the countries there, they have a lot of shared history and they've been interacting with each other directly. So that's why East Asia is a very helpful way of thinking about where Korea is in the world. However, we're modern Korean art and culture, and there is a modern sub-region of the world that's quite large, and it's this one. And this is the one that really comes to define not just Korea, but actually all of East and Southeast Asia and the Pacific Island as well. So does anyone know what this area is called? This region is what connects North America and Asia. And I'll give you a hint, it's the biggest ocean in the world, or the widest. The Pacific, yes. The Pacific is how North America and East Asia get connected together. And we're going to be talking about this connection between East Asia, particularly Korea, and especially the United States in this course a lot, because we're in the United States. So it's helpful, it's important for us to understand why it kind of matters for people who are in the United States, and then to understand and know what's going on in Korea. Yes, definitely. Yeah, Chinese character. Yeah, what Viola says here, very true. Someone is calling me. Sorry, someone tried to call me. All right. So the Pacific here. All right. So what contemporary countries are part of East Asia? What's number one? You actually just everyone put like number 1, 2, 3, 4. If you know. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's see if we can all get it. I'm sure we will. Yes, China. Exactly, China. All right, number 2. Japan. Yes, Japan. And then 3, what is number 3? South Korea. And then number 4. North Korea, yes, good. So the way that people tend to describe the way that these countries are interacting with one another is China is the mainland, Korea is the peninsula, and then Japan is the archipelago. And we're going to see, we're going to see in this class too, the way that culture or particularly political issues travel across the peninsula between the archipelago and the mainland to the archipelago particularly. Philippines is down here. Philippines we are not going to touch on, but there is quite a history of connection between the Philippines and Korea. Good. All right. So what is the capital of South Korea? Do we know this? Seoul. Yes, it's Seoul. Good. So it's Seoul. And you'll learn about this 2 different ways to write it. It's located here. It's about the middle of the peninsula. Does anyone know the capital of North Korea? You probably hear it all the time. So yeah, there's a couple ways to spell it as well. You probably are hearing about it a lot in the news lately. Yes, so there's like 3 different ways you're going to see it spelled in this course. Any of them are fine. And you're going to learn how to spell this word, particularly in the romanization module. Good. Oh, I need to put the thing. And that's here to the north. It is definitely not not central to the peninsula at all. So then, does anyone know what the name of the line that divides North and South Korea is called, or the border? I should just say the border. Okay, so DMZ. So DMZ is like the area around the line. The line is, yes. So J is direct messaging me, but J has it. It is the 38th parallel, and it is this line here. So the DMZ means demilitarized zone, and that's the area around the line, but the actual line itself is called the 38th parallel. Even though it's actually not the 38th parallel, like it's the 38th parallel like goes through here. But in this line is obviously not parallel. It's very squiggly and everything. But that's what it's called. So whenever you see that term, that's what it means. So we are in modern Korean art and culture. What does modern mean? And when is a place or a people, quote unquote, modern? What do we think? If you hear the word modern, what are some things you think of? Contemporary. All right, well, yes, kind of. We're going to find out in this course that those 2 things are actually different. At least in art history, they're different. In art history, modern and contemporary are different. Ooh, good. I like this one, Sarah. Present day-ish. I like that. The ish at the end is very important here. Good. Yes, good. New or something that's recent. Current, recent, new. Definitely, I like current and I like recent. New, it could be new, but not necessarily new. It kind of depends on whose perspective. Okay. So then what are some aspects of modern then? What are some aspects of modern? When are you modern? What do you think? If I say, oh, it's a modernized country. Have you heard this before? Modernized country. It's a modernized country, a modern culture, modern, I don't know, modern technology. What are some things that kind of you think of when you hear terms like that? When modern's like an adjective. Good, developed. Something about development, right? What does that mean? What does it mean to be developed, right? That's something else that we have to ask. Tall buildings, good. Yes, I like this, tall buildings, because there's a sense of, there's another word there. There's a sense of massive. There's something massive about it, right? You're following something that's a current trend. Okay, yeah, like something seems to be in fashion at the moment, so people are following it. There we go, Riddy. Yes, this is the word. Industrialized. Yes, industry. There's this sense that there's industry there. Good. Oh, yes, Viola. Able to interact on the global scale. Yes, they are part of the global community. They're not just in their own little bubble, right? They are part of the global community. Good. So there's a lot of things that we can think of with this, and we're going to really break them down a lot over this course. So recently or currently, I think is really the best way, the best kind of way to describe what modern is. It's just something that's happened recently or currently. However, when we talk about it with time and with art and culture, we tend to also be inferring that there are certain qualities of that art or culture that have been met. And these can include a lot of things. And this is just some of them, but industrialized, globalized, computer or digital technology, democratized, a centralized government. And this is the hard one here, westernized. Somehow, you know, we're going to see a little bit how these all come back to being you've become westernized in some way, right? And we're going to talk about what that means. Good. All right. So this next part is going to be a lot of me just talking. So try to follow along. I'll try to be quick about it, but we'll see. So when we talk about modern Korea, we're generally talking about Korea during the 20th century. And there's quite a few time period divisions within just the 20th century. A lot happened in Korea. You don't need to memorize it, but you are probably going to just naturally memorize it. So first off, we need to understand that prior to the 20th century, Korean people did not call Korea, Korea, but they actually called it Joseon. So you're going to see that term a lot, Joseon. And the European term Korea is actually derived from an even earlier kingdom called Goryeo. And we're going to talk about that later in the semester, but you don't need to know when it was or anything. So what's important about Joseon, though, is that you notice it was a unified kingdom for almost 500 years before the 20th century. And it was under Korean control, and it was not divided during this time. But then all of a sudden we get to the 20th century, and that's when we start getting a lot of problems come up for Korean people. So the first is the Japanese colonial period. So the beginning of the 20th century is this time, and we're going to discuss this in weeks 4 and 5. So it's the first half of the 20th century, and even though it was only about 35 years, the issues that arose during this time began a little bit earlier than the official colonization of Korea in 1910, and it has left the legacy that defines issues that Korea faces to this day. So what does colonial or colony or colonialism, what does that mean? What are some things you think of when you hear those terms? And we're going to define that a little bit later in the course. What are some aspects of being a colony that you've heard of? Ooh, joining together. Yes, but I would argue a little bit against that. I think there's a kind of a happiness with the word together, but that's not necessarily what happens here. Land, conquer. Yes, very good. Land is the #1 most important thing in colonization. It is about getting control. One country gets control of another country's land. Yes, here we have that here. Country's been occupied by another power. Exactly. Territory. Good. As a colony, you lack autonomy. You do not have political, social, cultural control over the land and the people. Someone else, people from the outside do, right? And then that's when we get to some other issues like lack of representation and expansion here and ruling, right? Good. So during this time is when Korean people did not have control over their own country, and they were colonial subjects. So generally speaking, Korean people were treated unfairly by the laws that the Empire of Japan set in place. What is more is that during the 1930s, particularly during the time of Japanese war mobilization to take over all the Pacific, which is what leads to the Pacific War and World War II that the US gets involved in, right? The Japanese colonial government tried to force Korean people to assimilate into Japanese culture by outlawing Korean language and culture. So you can imagine that this was a very hard time for people in Korea. And even in 21st century Korea, there's a lot of malice toward Japan for some things that occurred during this period. And we're going to talk about those things in more detail. I have them listed here for your reference, but we'll talk about them later on in the semester. So we have this couple of these many years, these few decades of hardship. And then once the Empire of Japan loses the Pacific War to the Allies, which is where the US and the USSR, the Soviet Union, belong. So Japan loses control over all of its colonies, not just Korea. And the US and USSR start to swoop in to occupy these areas, not just Korea, but also like Taiwan, areas in Southeast Asia. I'm gonna say this, but there's different interpretations about it. They did not come in with the exact intent to control them in the long run, but merely to stabilize them politically, right? So in 1945, the US starts to occupy Korea from the south, and the USSR starts to occupy Korea from the north. And they set up a temporary division at the 38th parallel until they can negotiate. What they would hoped would be a trusteeship between the two. So the US and USSR, they want to have a trusteeship so that they both have this kind of stabilizing control over the peninsula. They're sharing that control over all of it. And that would grant them equal power over it. However, as you can probably imagine, that was never going to happen. Due to the rising Cold War tensions, the US and USSR could not agree. And it was also due to the fact that Korean people themselves, who had just gotten out of Japan's colonial control, wanted their sovereignty as soon as possible and did not want to risk another power coming into total control of Korea. Can't really blame that, right? And because of that, the USSR in the North just allows Korean people to form their own government, and the US and UN in the South allow Korean people to form their own government. And they just don't worry about it anymore. So this is why there's two Koreas. It's not because of the Korean War, but because of the split occupation. And the Korean War is actually a result of this. Oh, excuse me, I should have put this. The Korean War is actually a result of this division. So the war began on June 25th, 1951. And in South Korea, I'm not sure about North Korea, but they call it the 625 War. 6.25 전쟁 is what they call it. They do not call it the Korean War, not really. You might hear it here or there. So it's helpful to remember the date, which is when the North invaded the South. Although in North Korea, they say the South invaded the North. So North Korea pushed South Korea all the way back to the southeast corner, which is the city or the area called Busan. Then the US helped the South by invading from the west at this port city called Incheon. And Incheon is where the airport for Seoul is actually located now. So to help the North, China and the USSR, who were aligned with North Korea because they were part of the communist bloc or the Red Bloc, they start sending troops from the northern border in to help out the North. Eventually, the UN troops enter into Seoul and they kind of act more like as a neutralizing party. So after a year of push and pull, the USSR is the first to officially call for an armistice. But as you can see, they call for this on June 23rd, 1951, and they don't actually sign an armistice, all of these parties together, until 1953. And so during this time, there's all these small conflicts going on still, right? So what ends up happening is it doesn't really change the division on the peninsula, which is still separated more or less the same way as it was before. But even though there was all these different parties involved, it was Korean people on both sides who got the brunt of the war atrocities. So about 2.5 million Korean people either died or were killed, and those are all that we have accounted for. 1.5 of which were just civilians, so just people trying to live their everyday lives and survive, right? So compare this to the 39,000 US or UN troops and the 600,000 China or USSR troops. Then the people who survived, this is an ongoing project, but the official count that they have recorded is 43,000 families were separated or estranged from the war. So imagine how it is in actuality when this is all that we have accounted for, right? So now we get to today, and we have these two states, and they seem very different on the surface, right? When we think of North Korea, we have a very different image than when we think of South Korea, right? So North Korea calls itself Joseon still, but South Korea calls itself Hanguk, which it means Korean people's country. So Han means Korean people and Guk means country. North Korea is a dictatorship and it has its own political and economic ideology called Juche, which we'll learn about next week. And it means self-reliance. But South Korea actually underwent a lot of military dictatorships and then became a democracy. They were not actually a democracy until the 1980s, the end of the 1980s, actually. And we're going to learn about that as well. And now they have this, they're an integral part of the global economy, and they have a domestically mixed market between some kind of public programs or quote unquote socialist kind of things and a free market, capitalist kind of things as well. So North Korea has 26 million people today, while South Korea is actually double that, 52 million people. But both speak Korean and they can understand each other. Students ask me that all the time. Can North Korea and South Korea understand each other? Yes, they absolutely can. They have different ways. Their ideal for Korean, so their standard speech is different, but they can understand each other. But what's most important is that they both claim the peninsula, its people, and its past as their own heritage, identity, culture, and history. They both think that they are they not just think, they believe wholeheartedly that they are the quote unquote true Korea. They are the real Korea. Each one believes that. And although they kind of have different interpretations of the past, on the inside, their national identities and their national cultures are rooted in the same place, people, and past. So we need to remember that. Yes, accents are different. There's lots of accents in Korean. Just like every language has lots of accents, there's lots of accents in Korean. So they have two different accents.
If I may interject with a question.
Yes, I was just about to
is
ask
it-
for questions.
Is it similar to and I mean this respectfully, is it
Mhm.
similar to the way that Spanish from Spain and Mexican Spanish, they can understand each other, but there's some words that are just not used in the other language? Is it kind of like that, or is it like
Yes, it is absolutely like that.
okay?
Even more so, I think.
So like the base vocabulary is basically the same.
Oh, well, yes, the
Okay.
base vocabulary is. However, in North Korean, they do not use English loanwords. And if you know anything about Korean from South Korea, they use English loanwords. They're called 외래어, 영어 외래어, English loanwords. They use them like crazy. But North Korea, absolutely no, they try and limit as much English as possible. I do read, however, some things from North Korea that use a lot of like French or German loanwords, which is kind of interesting to me. But yeah, same idea, same idea. So we call that in language that's called mutually intelligible. So that's why they're like accents or dialects, but they're completely mutually intelligible, right? Good. Are there any other questions? You can ask away about Korea or about Korean history or anything. Otherwise, we can move on. All right. So your blog assignment. So remember, this week you have to do your blog assignment Thursday, Friday, but starting next week, it's Monday or it's Tuesday, Wednesday. So remember that. So you're going to go under the Canvas week 1 introduction module from the weekly schedule. You're going to have to watch Professor David Kong's lecture on YouTube. Notice, and this is important for all the videos that you have to watch and the readings. Just because I give you the whole thing doesn't mean you have to read or watch the whole thing. You're only watching this like 14-minute segment. You can watch the whole thing if you want, but you don't have to. So you're going to watch this 14-minute segment, and then you're going to respond to the blog prompt. And so let me go back to Canvas here. Scroll down. So you have to watch this, and then it'll say blog week 1 introduction. So you're going to click it. It's going to look like this. So the blog is only these two, 1, 2, and then this is just the explanation from the syllabus. This is just listed there after all of them for your information. So this is what it looks like, and then you're just going to press reply and then type in your answer. I do suggest you actually write it in a word processor first and then copy it, just so that you don't have a bunch of spelling mistakes or anything. And it's generally helpful to do that. Okay, the blog is, what seem to be the defining events of Korean history since the late 19th century? Based on these events, how would you describe Korea's history during this time? If you were Korean, or if you know people from Korea, how would you feel about Korea's 20th century history? How does this history compare to the general image of Korea that people outside of Korea have about it today? So when you do your blog, do I have the, and then you're going to submit your comments to 2 classmates. So let's talk about the original blog. So when you do your blog, you need to write about 250 words. That's going to be a good blog is about 250 words. I do not grade you based on word count. I never do. But in my experience teaching this course, students who do about 250 words tend to have the most adequate, or like the perfect answers, an answer that hits all the points, right? Now, in the blogs, you are not required, I'm not going to require you to put a reference to any material. However, if you do reference the material, especially directly, you do need to cite with parentheticals. So it should look something like this. In the parentheses, the name of the reading, actually it shouldn't be the name of the reading, it should be the author name, or the title of the YouTube video, and then comma, if it's a reading, the page number, and then if it's a video, a minute, if you could. This is just good practice for you. On your plenary responses, which we'll talk, you don't have on this week, but next week you will. And on your final and midterm, you will have to do this. It will be worth points. So you need to make sure you do that on those things. But just for the blog, I suggest just practicing. So you get 7 points for the initial assignment posting. And essentially an excellent response, you have answered each of the questions. So every prompt has multiple questions, which are just to get you to write like a paragraph or 2 for the discussion, right? So when you're writing your response, make sure you go back and say, okay, did I answer what it seems to be the defining events of Korean history? Did I answer how I would describe it? Did I answer how would I feel, or how does it seem like people feel? Did I answer how does this compare to the image of Korea? So make sure you have all of those answered. And then you get 3 points for posting comments. So comments need to be meaningful to the discussion. Do I have? No, I don't have this. So you want to say something, you want to respond with something like, oh, I agree with you on this point that you said because, and then you need to give why. You need to give your reason why. Or you need to say, I didn't think about that, but because you said it, it also makes me think this, and then explain why. There are some more examples in the syllabus, and I think I'll go over examples next week. For this week, just kind of, just try it out, see what you can figure out. But the main thing is that you're not just saying like, I like that, or good, me too, something like that. Okay, so does the blog make sense to you? This actually, I think it has, yeah. At least one of the comments demonstrates analysis of you're kind of analyzing another student's post, right? Saying, you said this, I agree, I disagree. Okay.
So it's 3 submissions, 1 for our original blog and 2 for other classmates.
Yes. So you have 3 things that you're going to submit for this. That's a good way to put it. There's 3 things. Your initial blog, which is due on Tuesday at 11:59 p.m. And then the 2 comments, which are due by 5:00 p.m. on Wednesday.
So it would just be for this week. It would be Thursday at midnight and then Friday at 5.
Exactly. This week it's Thursday, Friday, but starting next week it's Monday, Tuesday. Yeah, I'm sorry that's confusing, but I don't really like to have students do assignments before I've explained it to them in class, so that's why I've done that.
Thank
Hmm.
you.
Retham, that's fine. Yeah. One of the comments, if someone commented on your post and then you want to comment back in response to them, that I'm fine with that, and I will count that as well. However, you should have at least one. If you're going to do that, the other one really should be responding to someone else's blog post. Yeah, students do tend to, in the past, some students have done that too, and I've counted it. So good question. Good. Any more questions about this? Okay, so let's see. Okay, so your other after class assignment are going to be these introductory modules, and I've seen some of you have already started looking at them. So you're going to just go down the line here in the module. You really don't have to do them in this order. I do think the romanization is helpful for the geography. You're just going to go do them all, do them in this order that I do all the little parts. It looks like a lot of things. It's really not a lot of things, but it's new information that if you don't know anything about Korean or Korea, it is going to be new to you. So go through it. And then the most important thing, though, is that you take the quiz. The quiz is your grade for the module. They're all worth 10 points. They're all open book. You can use everything that you've done. And each of the modules has one, right? So,
is the practice like the worksheet PDF, are those aren't graded, correct?
those are just for you. Those are
So
just
those
for
will just
you
help,
to practice.
those help us get ready for the quiz. Okay. Sorry,
Exactly.
I'm asking a shit ton of questions, but
Oh, no, that's fine. Please ask questions. I'm totally fine with that. Yeah, so those are just for you. They're not for a grade or anything like that. And these ones are actually like an online, like kind of game thing that you can use. Good. So let's see. So Korean romanization. So this is the one I really want to talk about here. So to romanize something means it's originally written in a script that is not the Latin alphabet, and then you put it into the Latin alphabet. So Korean is written in Hangul, and you'll see it spelled. There's two different ways to do it. So because there's two different ways of romanizing Korean into the Latin alphabet, that's why you kind of have to familiarize yourself with romanization a lot more than some other languages you might learn. And there's two, you don't need to know their names, but one is called McCune-Reischauer, and it's more like phonetic, like linguistic. And then revised romanization is more like by letter rather than by like the sound. And you're going to see both of them in this class. There's no one way to do it. Different disciplines use different ones. Different people use different ones. So you kind of have to be familiar with both. You only need to be able to read and recognize them. I'm never going to ask you to pronounce it. You're never going to be graded on your pronunciation. I will be pronouncing it in the right way, or the most right way that I can, the Korean way, whenever you see it. But just try your best. It's mostly just so you can be familiar with it when you see it. So at a glance, the main differences between these two systems are the vowels. So, and I have the pronunciation here with these vowels, but you'll see A in both is pronounced ah, but then it gets different with some of these other vowels like in the McCune-Reischauer has this little, I don't know, semicircle little dip on top of it. But in revised, it's EO. O is the same, U is the same, and then I or like this is the U with a little dip on top, but it's EU in the other one, in revised romanization. So, and then there's the use of apostrophes in McCune-Reischauer, but not in romanized or in revised romanization. So Hanguk, which you'll see this written out sometimes, has this apostrophe between because there's another sound in Korean that's like going, the ing, and that's ng. So that's why they have the apostrophe there. And then, but in revised romanization, they don't account for that. They just write it by letters. N and G are the two different letters in Korean, so they just put NG like that. Okay. So you'll be able to practice this and see all this written out and everything. So yeah, watch the video, practice with the worksheets, and then quiz. The quiz is matching McCune-Reischauer with revised romanization and the opposite, just so you know that they're the same word, but written differently. because that's what's most important. Okay. So Korean geography, basically you're just going to look at the maps and memorize the listed locations. So there's a lot of locations on the map, but you only really need to know the specific ones that I have listed under the directions. And there's just one quiz and it has different parts to it. Cities, provinces, mountains, and rivers. I'm going to be honest with you, the cities, provinces, and mountains, rivers that you need to know are very basic. And the ones that will come up in the course. So it's just good that you know where they are or have some kind of vague idea where they are. And then module 3 is visual analysis. So visual analysis is that way of writing and way of talking about artwork or visual something that we're going to be doing this whole semester. So watch the video and take some notes. The video, it's teaching you how to do it. And it's especially important that you understand the different terms that are that we use for visual analysis, because these are our historical terms. And starting next week, we're going to actually be practicing this and practicing using those terms. So you're going to have plenty of time to work on this, but the module is just to start to get you to be familiar with it. Okay. And the quiz is just the definition of the terms. All right. Good. So are there any questions about the modules?
Yes.
Yes.
Real quick, sorry. So under the module 1, it says the quizzes due the 26th. That's correct, right?
Yes. So these are due on Sunday by 11:59 p.m. All 3 of them.
All modules?
All 3 modules are due by Sunday at
Okay.
11:59 p.m.
Gotcha.
Thank you for asking. Yes, I was just about to say that, actually, after I asked for questions. Yes, so all 3 of them. Good. Any other questions? I would just say make sure you download, and I would keep the like term banks and things like that for you to help you later on in the course as well. I mean, you can always go back and get them anyways, but I think they're generally really helpful. Good. All right. So last pieces of advice. So make sure you follow the weekly tasks. You can follow the schedule or follow along on Canvas very carefully for the minutes and the pages and the readings. I stated that earlier, but I do want to emphasize that. So don't do more work than you have to. I know that might sound crazy coming from an instructor, but really, you really shouldn't. The other thing is definitely manage your time. Every week is laid out the same way. However, some of the assignments do take a little bit longer than normal. Some of the readings are much longer and some of the videos are much longer than they might be the week before. You just don't really know unless you're planning ahead of time. So make sure you manage your time properly. And this is the thing, and I have students that this is weird to me. I have students who this doesn't quite get into their brain correctly, but everything, oh, sorry, not this. Yeah, everything is writing, so review and edit. And then my last thing is this one, here we go. This is the thing that I'm like, this is so important. Everything is open book in this course. You will always be allowed and be able to refer back to class materials. In fact, you will be required to do that at many points over the course. So use all of your sources or use the sources that you find to be the most helpful. I cannot monitor you at home or while we're sitting here over a computer screen, right? So we don't have a choice. This is all open book. And that's totally fine. I think that's totally fine because, I mean, this is the age of the internet, right? If you don't know something, you can just Google it. You might not always get the best information, but you have plenty of resources at your hand that you already know how to use. So there's not really a difference to me. You don't really need to memorize things, if you ask me. All right. Good. So we are finished. We finished 2 minutes early. Very good. So if you have any questions about the course, you are welcome to ask me, stay back and talk to me about them. Otherwise, everyone is free to go. Have a lovely evening. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you all.
Thank you.